Hello, great people. Nigeria have been concerned about the US government refusing to disclose information about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu alleged drug dealings in the US to the Nigerian people. In this video, I'll be telling you why the CIA and FBI have refused to disclose the information or are refusing to release it to Benjamin Hundeyin and others that filed in court that the court should order CIA and FBI to release those information. The US government, through the CIA, named the term Glomar Response. What do you mean by Glomar Response? I'll be explaining that to you. I'll also be explaining to you the implication of the controversy on the presidency of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, on the United States itself, and what are the economic implications of this for Nigeria? If the United States have something against Nigeria, what are the ways that Nigeria can lose if they decide to blackmail the president of Nigeria? What are the avenues of economic extortion under international relations and diplomacy that they can use to extort Nigeria? Then I'll be linking it to the personality of Trump. Can things change when Trump gets sworn in January? I'll be looking at it from two sides, why things can change and why things cannot change. It means that Trump can decide to influence the release of that document, and he can also decide not to. Either ways, what can influence his decision. Then, at the end of the day, if the document is released, what is the implication of this on Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Does it have any consequence on him and his government? I'll be telling you that and a whole lot more on this episode of Politing with Dr. Omosholade, your favorite political scientist. Do want to subscribe to this channel and endeavor to watch this video to the end. Now, the CIA and FBI said that they cannot release the details of Bola Ahmed Tinubu's drug dealing because of what they call Glomar Response. First, is there any details that can be reviewed? Yes, in the sense that it is of public knowledge that Bola Ahmed Tinubu, while he was in the United States, forfeited over 400,000 US dollars. For such an humongous amount to have been forfeited, it means that investigation would have been done. A lot of people would have been investigated, and so many things would have been done before they can decide that this money must be forfeited to the United States, or Bola Ahmed Tinubu will decide to forfeit the money. So in that kind of instance, the process of that investigation, the details of that investigation will be with the CIA and FBI. So is there information that CIA and FBI can reveal to Nigerians? Of course, yes. But now, they didn't want to reveal it because of what they call Glomar Response. What is Glomar Response? The phrase originated from an FOIA, which is a Freedom of Information case that sought information concerning a ship. That's where they got the name Glomar. A ship named Glomar Explorer. And when the case came up as regards that particular ship many years ago, the CIA refused to confirm or deny its relationship with the Glomar vessel because to do so would compromise the national security and divulge intelligence sources and methods. That is why I said that now they are using the Glomar. That means that the CIA do not even say whether there is information to reveal or not. You understand? They just use that Glomar Response policy to kind of like respond to the court. And that is why I first established that, okay, now that you have not even said whether you have information about the drug dealings, could you have information about the drug dealing? And that was what I established earlier for you, which is yes. Because for Bola Ahmed Tinubu to have forfeited over 400,000 US dollars, that means you have information that led to that forfeiture, information of the investigation, which can be useful to Nigeria and Nigerians. Now, what is the implication of this for Nigeria? But before I go into that, let me first talk about the hypocrisy of the US government, which is very important. Now, let us look at it. The US government have been operating from both sides of the divide. It has shown that it is the interest of the United States that will determine how the United States will act. In other words, there's something that the US can benefit strategically from Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's why they are failing to release the document. Because if you ask US now for document as regards hush puppy Hush puppy does not have anything meaningful that it can give to the United States or can influence anything of meaningful benefit to the United States. But Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the president of the capital of the black race, the president of a country of over 200 million population, the president of a country that has about 200 mineral and natural resources. Such a country, if you look at global history, if you look at the principles of imperialism, if you look at colonialism, slave trade, you see that Nigeria is of strategic importance to the United States. And that is why the United States naturally may, and I use the word may want to use that opportunity to be able to hoodwink Bola Ahmed Tinubu, just so that the US can get favorable economic policies that will be beneficial to them. And that is why the US apparently has refused to review the information. And this will, at the end of the day, be to the detriment of Nigerians. Before I go into those detriment, let me tell you another instance of the US hypocrisy, which is that you remember the case of Gambrayan. Gambrayan was accused of tax evasion, currency speculation, and other form of financial infraction. The US government prevailed on the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu to release him and drop the charges against him. The government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu complied, and Gambrayan is now in the United States. Take note that Gambrayan was being accused by Nigerian government of a financial infraction of over 34 million US dollars. Now, let me go to Allen Onyama. Allen Onyama is being accused by the US government of a financial infraction regarding the purchase of aeroplane of about 20 million US dollars. Now, look at the difference. Gambrayan is being accused by Nigerian government of over 34 million dollars. Allen Onyama about 20 million US dollars. The US government that sought the release of Gambrayan, that secured his release, is now the one running from pillar to post, seeking to bring Allen Onyama to justice. Look at the hypocrisy. You can see the thin line of hypocrisy in the action of the United States. That's why I said the action of the United States is always driven by its interest. So once they have something that they can gain or they can benefit, that will determine their action. Now, what is the implication of all this controversy? You will remember that when Donald Trump was the president, he invited Buhari. Buhari met with Trump. Such invitation is not because Trump loved Buhari or Buhari is any special breed. There must be something that the US want to benefit from Nigeria. So if Buhari did not dance to the tune of US, now that you have a president that the US perhaps have some dark information against, then you will see that when Trump comes in, Trump will now meet with Tinubu and use that as some form of subtle blackmail to get what US want from Tinubu. You can see the link, right? That is some of the implications of this controversy. And that's why nations are always very careful that when they want to elect a president, they want to elect somebody that its records are super clean. There's no scandal, whether the person committed that offense or not. They don't care. They just don't want any scandal, just so that the interest of the country can be protected. Now, what are the economic extortion that can happen as a result of this controversy? How can Nigeria lose greatly and economically if the US decide to use this drug case issue to blackmail Nigeria? First, if the US government want to use this drug issue to extort Nigeria economically, what they will do is to compel the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu to adopt a US first policy. What do I mean by that? It means that if Nigeria wants to do anything of importance, if Nigeria wants to take a decision, particularly economic decisions, the US will have the first right of refusal. That means that the US will be given the exclusive right of decline. If the US is interested in that thing, even if other countries are lobbying for it, even if other countries are giving Nigeria favorable offer than that of the US, Nigeria will have no choice than to give that opportunity to the United States. That is a US first policy. That is giving the US a right of first refusal. So even if countries like Germany, France, UK, Canada are offering Nigeria better deals, it means that if the US is interested, even if their deal does not favor Nigeria and Nigerians, the Tinubu government have no choice than to give that particular opportunity to the United States. And imagine the kind of economic extortion that that can bring to the people of Nigeria if the US have the right of first decline on everything. That if they have interest in something, you must give it to them. You must consider them first. Imagine that, you know. Now, the second way is that the US government, if they have something against Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they can use that to compel him to kind of like operate a free market. What do I mean by that? In the sense that they will tell Bola Ahmed Tinubu that let your government allow a free market in such a way that companies can come in and out of Nigeria, goods can come in and out of Nigeria with little or no difficulty. This is where the problem is. If you look around you, Nigerian economy is dominated by China product. That means that if they try to blackmail Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it means that the Bola Ahmed Tinubu government will be forced to push China aside. So you don't see that all of a sudden Nigeria's policy, especially economic policy, will just be favoring the United States. Companies that originated from the United States, goods that are coming from the United States will be largely favored. And that is what we call a free market, in such a way that it will be easy for companies, for goods, anything that is of US origin, it will be easy for them to come in and out of Nigeria. And that may not be the best for Nigeria, because some of those goods may even be substandard. Some of them may not be absolutely beneficial to the population of Nigeria. But if they compromise the president, which is the symbol of authority and the buck stop at his table, definitely the US will just be having a free entry and exit into Nigerian market. And that itself, it's not a good thing, because regulation will be on the low. Another way that the US can extort Nigeria is by influencing the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu to make Nigeria a dumping ground. What do I mean by that? You see, the cost of recycling, if you want to recycle, is very expensive. So rather than recycle some of the goods or some of the products that are not of use again in the US economy and country, they will just be dumping it in Nigeria. I know that Nigeria have a lot of population. So rather than for US companies to spend money to recycle, for instance, their cars that are getting old or cars that have accident, rather than to spend money to recycle them, what will happen is that they will now be earning money rather than spending money to recycle them, because they would have an agreement with Nigeria, and Nigeria would just be made a dumping ground. So their old cars, for instance, some countries have policies that cars that is more than 5 years or 7 years cannot come into their country. But then Nigeria will just leave it open so long as it is from US origin. So any car in the US, regardless of the year that it is made, can just be dumped in Nigeria. No matter the kind of accident, even if the car has been, even if the impact of the car, the impact of accident of the car has reshaped or totally damaged the car, the US will just come and dump it in Nigeria. Imagine how much it will cost the US government to recycle the old microwaves in the United States. So if they have a policy, or if they are able to hoodwink the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they will just make Nigeria the dumping ground of US. So every waste in the US will just be dumped in Nigeria for the people of Nigeria. So, and government will not have much to say if the government is being blackmailed. If the president knows that they have something against him, then it will be detrimental to the people of Nigeria, because anything from the US will just be dumped in Nigeria. Another way that if the US have something against Bola Ahmed Tinubu that they can use to extort Nigeria economically is that of seeking a tax rebate for US firms. What do I mean by that? Company of US origin will be encouraged to come into Nigeria because government will be collecting little or no tax. For instance, if government is supposed to collect about 30% tax, the US government would cajole Nigerian government in such a way that government will now not be collecting, at least within the duration of Tinubu presidency, more than 8%. So imagine the difference between 8% and 30%. That means that there's more money for companies of US origin. Now, the benefit of that to the government of United States is that the government of United States will now tell those companies that if we help you to get a good deal from the government and people of Nigeria, you will increase your CSR, that is corporate social responsibility, in the United States. That means that those companies will increase what they can do to be benefiting the people of the United States. So that means that if they are paying 8% in Nigeria, but they are to pay 30%, that means that there is a remaining 22%. The United States government can tell them that if we get a favorable tax policy for you, you will be using like 10 or 15% out of that 22% to be doing something for the government and people of the United States as corporate social responsibility. So imagine the profit that that will bring for companies of US origin. Now, how does Donald Trump come into play in this analysis? Donald Trump can intervene in two ways. Now, the first is that Donald Trump is a businessman. If you look at him, he has a business empire that he has built and he has done well for himself. So Donald Trump has a capitalist approach, which is for profit. So if Donald Trump is approaching it from the business perspective, that means that he will be activating the economic means of extortion that I just analyzed for you to the benefit of the United States. But then again, Donald Trump has a running battle with the government of Joe Biden because he was arraigned in court and he believed that he was unjustly arraigned, and some of those judgments were influenced. So the Donald Trump himself have some bad feelings about the US judiciary. So if Donald Trump decide that he wants to overhaul the judiciary based on the running issues that he has with the judiciary and the security agencies in the United States, that may lead to the revelation of the drug dealings of Bola Ahmed Tinubu when he was in the United States. But let us look at something. Even if these damning evidences, if any, is released, what is the implication on Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Well, I can tell you for free that the implication is little or nothing. In the sense that one of the implications is that it can affect the image of Nigeria and the image of Bola Ahmed Tinubu among the Committee of Nations, that Nigeria may not be well respected, that Nigeria may be looked with ridicule, and Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself may lose legitimacy amongst his citizens. But that doesn't deny him the right to contest for election in 2027. Now, if he so decide to contest, what is the implication? INEC, the police that will conduct the election, are allegedly in the pocket of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And if you go to court, don't forget that during the 2023 election, this drug issue came out in that case at the tribunal and up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has ruled on it and they gave a favorable judgment to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, if you bring it up again, the Supreme Court can easily tell you that they have ruled on this case in the 2023 election and that is final because they cannot now reverse themselves. The judges will tell you that they cannot reverse themselves, so they cannot give a contrary judgment on a case that judgment has already been delivered in 2023. End of story. So if you look at it, it can just, it can just cause a monumental embarrassment for Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But in terms of having significant implication on him, in terms of removal from office, I don't see that happen. And even if there's any damning evidence, the Senate and the House of Rep under Akpabio and Tajuddin Abbas, they are in bed with Bola Ahmed Tinubu, so nothing can happen. What this whole thing just teaches us is that anything that we are doing, we should always be mindful of a future whereby we can be held accountable for it, because nobody knows tomorrow. And God can elevate us to something that we don't even think that we can be. So while we are nothing or almost nothing, we should be considered of the time that we will be something. It's been an interesting time with you on this episode of Politing with Dr. Omosoladeji. Dr. Deji is a political scientist with a PhD in political science, and this is where we relax to analyze politics and happenings in the polity. Do well to subscribe, do well to turn on your notification button, do well to catch up with my past videos, and of course I have great interesting videos coming your way. Till I see you again, of course you already know that I love you all sincerely.